Mr. President, I wish to begin today on a topic of sports betting. In May, the Supreme Court cleared the way for any state to legalize sports betting, which had been prohibited in all but a handful of states since 1992. I'd like to say up front that I am not a fan of sports betting. I have grave concerns about gambling in general and sports betting in particular. There is no question that sports betting, like other types of gambling and addictive behavior, has ruined far too many lives. And to those deleterious social effects, the threat sports betting poses to the integrity of the game. And you can see why the prohibition on sports wagering in the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act passed the Senate 88-5. I authored this legislation and fought tooth and nail to get it passed because I knew that without it, sports gambling would corrupt the integrity of the game. Despite these views, I am also a realist. With the nearly $5 billion annually in legal sports wagers in Nevada, plus an estimated $150 billion a year in illegal sports wagers in the United States, we can't put the genie back in the bottle. Prohibition is not a possibility or a prudent path forward. Instead, now that states are free to legalize sports betting, our goal should be to bring that illegal wagering activity into well-regulated legal markets that can better protect consumers and the integrity of sports. As I wrote in Sports Illustrated earlier this year, sports betting is inevitable. Let's make sure it's done right. To do it right, we need to ensure that state regulatory frameworks are not a race to the bottom. I firmly believe that we need a set of fundamental federal standards that will protect the integrity of the games, that will protect consumers and the sports wagering market. Since the Supreme Court decision in May, sports betting has been conspicuously absent from the public dialogue on Capitol Hill. A hearing on the issue was scheduled by the House Judiciary Committee, but then postponed, and I hope that it will be rescheduled so that Congress can explore what a post-PASPA would look like. Sports betting implicates a whole host of complex issues, and I have been diving into those issues as I work toward draft legislation that will establish some much-needed guardrails to protect the integrity of the game. I am grateful for all of the guidance and insight that many stakeholders have provided, and I invite others who are interested to do the same. Let me pause for a moment to discuss integrity, a word frequently used in the sports betting debate, but often left undefined. In the context of sports, integrity is used to describe events that are recognized as honest and genuine competition. There is a reason the predetermined outcomes in professional wrestling attract a small fraction of the following enjoyed by baseball, football, basketball, and other sports. The integrity of sport, the sense that the game is a real competition free from outside influence, is what attracts fans and keeps them coming back. Integrity can be compromised in various ways. Take, for example, the doping scandals in cycling that took down Lance Armstrong and led fans to question whether races were won by the best athlete or the rider on the best drug regimen. But there is no greater threat to sports integrity than match fixing. And there is no question that a big payoff in the sports betting market is the leading reason criminals and cheaters get involved with match fixing. This relationship between sports integrity and sports betting, including match fixing, cannot be ignored. In the world of gambling, sports betting is a unique product with unique risks. When a casino patron pulls the handle on a slot machine or rolls the dice at a crap table, money may change hands, but there is little connection to the outside world. When a patron places a sports bet, however, there is the potential, and in far too many cases, it has been the reality that the sports wagering market is being used to profit off match fixing. There is a connection, and not always a positive one, between the bets placed in a casino and the outcome on the field. The integrity concerns related to sports wagering are nothing new. For years, billions of dollars in bets have been placed on sports each year, presenting these very concerns. But the offshore books where the vast majority of these wagers have been placed are under no obligation to take steps to mitigate the threats to integrity. As states move to legalize sports betting and bring that offshore activity into the regulated market, they should be taking reasonable steps to protect the integrity of sports and the marketplace. We can and should expect more from the legal operators than those in the illicit market. And those legal operators are quickly getting in the game. It would be a mistake to think that seeming disinterest in the issue at the federal level has carried over to the states. States, understandably so, seek legalized sports betting as a way to bring in much-needed tax revenue. It's amazing how quickly things get done when money is a motivator. At the beginning of May, full-scale sports betting was available only in Nevada. Today, you can also place sports wagers in Delaware, New Jersey, and Mississippi. Sports betting in West Virginia will officially launch on September 1st. Pennsylvania and Rhode Island may have sports betting by the end of the year, and more than a dozen other states have taken steps to move toward legalization. All of this progress in just the past 3 months, watching this flurry of activity in the states has only underscored for me the need for some consistent minimum standards to protect the integrity of sports and the sports wagering market. Let's look at a specific example. Who should be allowed to place a sports wager? Imagine if players or referees were able to place wagers on games in which they were participating. They certainly have the ability to influence the outcome, and if players or referees were betting on the game, there could be reason to question their actions on the field. How could fans have faith in that the outcome was the result of honest competition and not an intentional effort to get the biggest payout? I suspect there is a fairly broad consensus that certain categories of folks should not be able to place bets on certain events. For instance, players should not be allowed to place bets, and certainly not referees. But the West Virginia sports betting regulations approved in June don't say that. In fact, they leave it to each sports book to decide whose participation in sports betting might undermine the integrity of a sports event. It is odd that this decision would be left to the sports books, such that an individual may be prohibited from placing a bet at one sports book in the state, but would be permitted to do so at another. The decision to leave this integrity decision to the sports books is even more concerning when you consider the potential conflict in the duties and motivation of the sports books. Operators certainly want to protect integrity so that they are not accepting wagers on fixed games. But the West Virginia sports betting law also requires sports book operators to, quote, assist the commission in maximizing sports wagering revenues, unquote. How many folks will they really be turning away to protect the integrity of the game if they are also under a statutory mandate to maximize the amount of money coming in the door? Other states have been more specific on this point, but still leave open questions. Mississippi prohibits only coaches or participants from betting on a particular event. What is a participant? Does it include referees? Maybe they're a participant because they are on the field, but what about an athletic trainer or league executives? While Mississippi law does not answer that question, New Jersey put in place robust laws that specifically prohibit athletic trainers and members of the sports governing body from placing wagers. There is nothing wrong with there being differences among the states, That is the beauty of our federal system, but it does seem that when it comes to protecting the integrity of the game and sports betting market, there should be some consensus, at least some minimum standards about who can place a wager. If states are allowed to fall behind those looking to illegally profit off sports betting, we'll simply migrate to where there are the fewest restrictions. Protecting the integrity of sports from the dark side of sports betting is not a theoretical exercise. We're all familiar with the fixing of the 1919 World Series, Pete Rose's expulsion from baseball, and point shaving at Boston College. More recently, NBA referee Tim Donaghy both bet on games that he officiated and passed along tips to bookies. The qualifying match for this year's World Cup had to be replayed after the referee was found to have fixed the match. Just last month, there were signs of possible match fixing in a men's doubles match at Wimbledon. As states move to legalize sports wagering, we must seize the opportunity to put in place world-class measures to protect the integrity of our sporting events and the sports betting market. To that end, an important part of the legislation I will be proposing is improvements to monitoring and enforcement that will benefit all of the stakeholders, sports books, regulators, governing bodies, and consumers. These are complex issues, but I'm happy to announce that much progress is being made. I look forward to continuing the engagement with stakeholders and in the coming weeks releasing a legislative proposal to kickstart the much-needed sports betting discussion on Capitol Hill.